My name is Jaden, and this is my Module 3 video brief. First slide, self. How did issues of class and religion affect the development of your cultural identity? So, growing up, I lived in a very economically stable household. I never had to face great hardships when it came to finances. Um, I just never knew struggle. I know my parents had financial issues growing up, but thanks to them working hard, I've never had to um, see or experience financial struggles like they might have, or I know other people have. So I grew up in a very privileged household to not even be aware of how bad poverty could be until I got a little older. Um, I lived in a Christian household, but um, it wasn't very strict when it came to religious practices or beliefs. Um, we might have gone to church a couple times, or I know I had two different nannies, and they took me to church with them when they took their own kids. But I don't think religion has played much part in my own identity, since I was always free to explore or express myself however I saw fit. Um, yeah, so now that I'm a bit older, I'm free to um, explore religion and um, talk to others who might be a little more religiously centered, I guess you could say. Um, and I'm just learning their perspectives and what religion means to them. And I would just have to say it hasn't had much of an impact on me. I guess I'm very privileged when it comes to that. School, in what ways do these issues play out in your school and or workplace? Um, Once again, because I was fortunate enough to not worry about class and religion, I was surprised to see how that affected other people and what that looked like for them. Um, so I'm a tutor, so I meet most of my students either at their house, online. I've met students at my university place um, back when I was a college student because our campus was very popular and there were many schools nearby. But if I did go to their home or if we were doing like an online session over Zoom or something like that, then it really let me looked into what the household was like and kind of what their economic status was. But that's just guesstimating. I can never really know what's happening in my students' lives like that. Um, and again, with their religious interests or affiliations, I got to see a bit of that too. Um, Maybe some things in their house or if they had a shrine or anything like that. I was able to kind of look into that. Um, So I haven't really experienced any issues so far in that area. When it comes to my students, I've had any issues with parents. I feel like my work is somewhat diverse that I bring to them. So I really haven't had any issues with that. And if they have questions, I haven't had an issue with answering anything my student has so far, or parents being worried about things their children are exposed to that they seem like inappropriate or things of that nature. But I guess an issue I have seen is when I'm looking at students' homework and kind of like seeing what they're looking at in class when we're reviewing stuff. I have noticed like a lack of representation. Um, so I live in the city, so I thought that was kind of weird. I live in a big city, a very diverse place, but I just thought it was weird that I wasn't seeing much of that. Um, Also, class isn't class, like economic class, that's not regularly mentioned to uh, younger students. That's something that they explore more in um, middle or high school. But when it comes to that and exploring those areas with my students, I haven't had an issue with that so far. I feel like all the materials I had uh, spoke greatly on the issues themselves, and I was just able to maybe include some works or literature or other resources that I thought might be helpful in making sure they had a sound picture of struggles other people may be facing in their lives. Um, but once again, it's not an issue I've had to encounter much firsthand. Once again, I think I'm very privileged being able to say that. I know in other schools or other workplaces that this could be or has been an issue, but I've only had to read what that looks like so far. Society, how are issues of power and privilege addressed nationally and internationally? Um, so I guess I'll just start with like nationally. Coming from reading, differences in special class still exist at a large level. I think this isn't something that will go away. I think we will always struggle with privilege when it comes to schools. I know growing up, I was, excuse me, uh, sorry. So, in my early years, I was placed in school that wasn't doing so great financially. It was in a bit of a, not a rougher neighborhood, it was a good neighborhood, but I know the school wasn't receiving that much funding, and so a lot of our classroom materials were a bit used, and looking back at it, the curriculum wasn't that great. I struggled with reading until I changed schools in the second grade. So I went to a slightly underprivileged school, but then after changing schools, one that received a massive amount of funding due to high taxes in the area, I noticed I did a lot better in my classes. Um, Classrooms were nicer. There were multiple teach. There was there was an excessive amount of teachers, in my opinion. Just looking back at it, for such a small school that I went to, um, we were able to do a lot more. We had access to more opportunities. For example, I remember there being multiple home ec classrooms, multiple language classrooms, multiple music and gymnasium areas, a full separate auditorium. It was just nicer, and I can see how that comes into play when it comes to um, schooling. And again, I don't think that's going away. I think there will always be underprivileged areas that suffer um, because their school can't receive funding, and so it greatly impacts their students. And I've encountered a bit of that, but I wouldn't say it's been anything that has changed my life greatly because I was able to make that change quickly in my early educational career. Um, it's also connected to race as well. African Americans and the Latinx community continue to suffer because of exclusion and marginalization. So once again, it's unfortunate, but um, minorities do face more economic struggles than maybe um, their white counterparts, mostly because of just historical issues. Uh, Example of this is I watched a documentary about schools in Detroit and how a lot of their students were at risk because um, they came from poor backgrounds. You know, their parents struggled. Um, might be a one-parent household, which is unfortunate. It took a toll on the students' mental health and well-being. They get caught up in things that they shouldn't be, and it's just unfortunate. Um, I dad came from Atlanta where something similar had happened, but his mother was able to move him and his siblings out, and I know he did a lot better in school once he wasn't facing like just violence in the streets, I guess. But again, it does link to race. It's hard to ignore the connections there, and although schools may be becoming better, it's still unfortunate that so many students just have to suffer or become just exhausted because of outside forces in their life. The school's not doing great, they're not doing great, and all these things just seem to add up. Uh, schools being the students being denied top schools because of inequality in schools. Um, again, if the predominantly white schools are receiving more funding, students are getting more help in schools, they have less stressful factors outside of schools, they're going to do better. Their score is going to be better than those who are suffering economic or um, societal problems, and they're more likely to get into top universities with their better marks. And it's this awful like web system, and suddenly students are like drowning because of all these economic issues in their life. I know some schools are trying to make sure they have a certain amount of minorities present in their schools so they can say our schools are inclusive. But I know once again, like they only want maybe 100 or so of some race or whatnot, and they're just trying to fill these holes. I think there was a few uh, news sources I saw about this, but yeah. Um, Schools are focused mostly on Christian holidays for days off. For example, Christmas. I think that's changing now. Now we have winter break instead of Christmas. And while we may do other Christian holidays like talking about Easter or something like that, I know we're also bringing up other religious holidays in schools, and that's becoming more popular. I know some schools are talking about Ramadan now, and I just like seeing how schools are becoming more open to these um, other religions and more accepting. Um, the science curriculum changing to involve evolution, so um, recognizing that we did evolve from something and that the Big Bang happened, and while uh, it is totally acceptable to believe that like God created the universe. Um, there are also these other possibilities as to why we are here now. Schools are also accepting more LGBTQ plus studies in schools. Once again, previously heavy um, Christian um, controls in schools, but I feel like that's loosening up a bit now, and now students are being able to explore and learn more about other communities that may not have been accepted by certain faiths. And here are just my references.